Today is Friday, Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Pashas Masei, Shabbos Mevorchim, HaChodesh Menachem Ov, Shabbos Chazak, etc., etc. Today's Friday, but it's Chof Hei, isn't it? Chof Hei, Tammuz, Tovshin.
No, it's not Chof Hei. No, it's Chof Zayin.
Chof Zayin?
Yeah.
Nothing to miss. You sure?
Yeah.
Chof Zayin?
Yeah, you missed those 2 days. What did you
No, I was here yesterday. What did I say was yesterday?
I'm saying you just missed those 2 days.
I just missed those. No, so I have an extra 2 days. I always wondered if you fly east all the time.
Yeah.
Do you live longer? You keep on flying east your whole life. I mean, just about enough so when you come to the point where you started from, it's time. The time's going.
The dates.
Oh, the date. Yeah. Okay, we have proof. Chavov Tammuz Tovshin Ayin Daled. We're in the Mamar of Chav Zayin Tammuz Tovshin Ayin Daled. We are in the Mamar of the second day of Shavuos Tovshin Yud Beis. And Sefer Teres Menachem Sefer Mamar Tovshin Daled Tovshin Yud Beis. We are on page Shin Gimel, just at the top. 3 lines from the top. The line that starts Shenitna at the full stop by the word V'hainu. The Rebbe over here is explaining the idea of the crowns that the Yidden received at Matan Torah when they said Naaseh v'Nishma, and the reason for that is because they said Naaseh before Nishma. And the crux of the Rebbe's question was, they should have gotten a 3rd crown for saying Naaseh before Nishma, because it's so great that it's only because of that they receive a crown for Naaseh and for Nishma. So therefore they should have gotten a 3rd crown. So the Rebbe explained that indeed there are 3 crowns, right? And he brought the whole Medrash of Kadeshim Tiyu, Kikadesh Ani, and so on and so forth. There are 3 crowns, and the 3rd crown Hashem keeps for himself. Right? So now the Rebbe is explaining the idea of these 3 crowns. So let's start, we'll start from Shin Beis at the bottom. To explain the 3 crowns and their connection to the giving of the Torah, this will be understood by first prefacing the saying of our sages in the Talmud, in Shabbos, Tractate Shabbos, what is the reason that the verse in Genesis and Bereshit states concerning the 6th day of creation that there was evening and there was morning? The Yom HaShishi, the sixth day, in Hebrew, in Lashon Kodesh, when you say Ha-Shishi, or you precede a word with the letter Hey, it indicates a famous, well-known
Hey
Hayidiyah, exactly. So Hashishi's Hayidiyah is the well-known, famous 6th day, right? Whereas in all the other days it doesn't say Vayi Yachad Vayibeker Yom Harishon Yom Hasheni Yom Hashlishi. It says Vayi Vayibeker Yom Echad Vayi Vayibeker Yom Sheni. Day 1, day 2, day 3, right? Here it says Hashishi. Why? Hey, you say the Lamali. Why is there an extra Hey? Malamed, this comes to teach us that God made a condition with his works of creation, and he said to creation, if the Jewish people will accept the Torah, you will continue to exist. And conversely, if not, the opposite, right? What's the connection with Hashishi and Matan Torah? This is the meaning of Vayer Vayibeker. It was evening and it was morning, the famous 6th day. This means that the evening and the morning of the final day of creation, of the finality of creation, Tolui Bayom Hashishi, depends on the 6th day. And that there should be evening and there should be morning in the very general sense, in the very full sense, is Yom Hashishi depends on the 6th day. Which 6th day? V'hu Vav B'Sivan. This is a reference to the 6th day in the month of Sivan, Shenitna by Torah, on which the Torah was given. V'hainu. What does that mean? Sh'ad Matan Torah lo'hoya lo'elam kiyum amiti. That until the giving of the Torah, the world didn't have true established existence. Why? Lihiyosi Torah b'tnai. Because the existence of the world until Matan Torah, until the giving of the Torah, was conditional. And we hadn't yet known if that condition will be fulfilled. V'rak b'matan Torah, it's only concerning the giving of the Torah, it's only when the Torah was given, Nasa kiyum ha'olam, the world became fully and comprehensively extant. In more detail, so this is generally that the world was conditional. In other words, the point is that the existence of the world depends on something else. the existence of the world depends on Torah. In more detail, says the Rebbe, the existence of the world doesn't only depend on Torah, it depends on three pillars. The famous Mishnah in the first chapter of Avos, right? What is it? Al shloisha dvarim, ha'olam emed, that the world actually stands and exists on what? On three pillars. Beprati says this in a bit more detail. Amr Razal, our sages say in the Mishnah in Avos, the ethics of our fathers in the first chapter. Al shloisha dvarim ha'olam emed. The world stands on three things. What are those three things the world stands on? Al ha'torah, al ha'aveda, al gemilas chasodim. Stands upon Torah. It stands about service, tefillah, right? And al gemilas chasodim, acts of kindness, bestowing kindness. What is this idea that the world stands and depends on something else in the spiritual sense? The main existence of the world is through the transcendental elements specifically. I'll explain that briefly, because we learned about it, if you remember. And especially if you remember the diagram that you had, that I think Kevin had or whatever. Yeah, but say the Ishtalshalos. The point is this. The Kabbalah says, it says in Kabbalah that when it came up in Hashem's pure will, simple will, pure will, to create the worlds, right?
Yeah.
There was in existence then the Eagle HaGodel, the Ein Sof Shelifnei Tzimtzum, God's infinite light before the contraction, the first contraction, right? In order for the world to have the ability to exist, for there to be, in that scheme of things, right? When there's Ein Sof Shelifnei Tzimtzum, only Hashem's infinite light, there is no room. Not in the physical sense, of course, but even notionally, there is no room for a world that sees and appears as what? Sees itself and appears as a separate entity. Right? So what did Hashem do? He made a tzimtzum. He pushed away, so to speak, his Ein Sof to the sides, and he left an Eagle HaGodel. He left a Cholol HaMakom, he left a void and an empty space. Right? Notionally. There's no space or measure in the physical sense as we know it. And then he drew down a kav, a line of infinite light, through this tzimtzum, through this contraction, through this makom panui, through this empty space. And that kav now becomes, this line of Ein Sof, it becomes in the totality of Seder Shtalshalos, of the chain order of creation. Whatever is higher in the kav has a higher level of Seder of Ishtalshalos, is at a higher level of Ishtalshalos, until our low, very physical world, which is at the very bottom of this line of Ein Sof. Right? Of this line of godliness, of God's energy. The difference between the Ein Sof Shelifnei Tzimtzum and the Kav, the difference between this God's infinite light and this light of the Kav is that the Ein Sof Shelifnei Tzimtzum, right, is Blikvul, or transcendental, makif. And the kav is a pnimi. The kav is an internal and immanent godly energy. Now, although you have this idea of a circle, right, and a kav coming down from it, or a circle like this, if you will, and a kav coming down, right? It says in the Kabbalah Kisvei Arizal, it says that it wasn't just only one eagle. There is the concept in Kabbalah is called, in Chassidus brings it, which the Rebbe is explaining. This idea here is igulim v'yosher. In the whole Seder Ishtalshalos, you have this repeated phenomena of igulim v'yosher. The circles and the lines, or the transcendental divine energy and the immanent divine energy. The blikvul and the gvul, the makif and the pnimi. Igulim is the makif, the transcendental godly energy, and the pnim and the yesher is the immanent. The pnim is the divine energy that comes into a pnimis and is defined.
Are you saying that the outer immanent, the eagle, has a direct relationship to the before the?
Absolutely, that's exactly the point.
That's the point.
There's the concept we learned to remember in one of the idea of the
in
world
in a lower form or in the same form?
in a lower form,
In
but
a
you
lower
can
form.
get through the lower form to the higher form.
Yeah.
That's the idea. There's a special. Let me flesh it out.
Yeah.
In every world, so let's start from Asiya, for example, the lowest world. You have the Pnimi, which is otherwise known as this Esespheres, the 10 divine attributes.
Yeah.
Chochmat Malchus. That is the Yosher part, the Kav part, as it were, that relates to Elam Asiya. But beyond that, you have an eagle, a transcendental light, which is known as Keser,
Umabale.
or Sefer Mamala, precisely.
Yeah.
So that's the Keser aspect of the
Seifa, I mean,
Sefer, right? So the Kav is Mali, is Mali, and that's Sefer, or otherwise known as the 10 spheres and Keser,
Yeah.
right? But then on top of it, you have another line, which is the line of Yitzira, Chachmat Malchus, and again you have the Keser or the Makif part,
Sure.
which surrounds it, which is the Yitzira Keser, right? So each world has its Makif and its Pnimi, its Keser and its Esespheres,
And-
its Seviv and its Memali. Hold on.
Just, sorry,
Yeah.
and the relationship between Asiya and the world above it, which is Yitzhak.
1 second, let me go through it stage by stage. Now, both these energies come into Seder Ishtalshalos through the Tzimtzum. So you have the Igul HaGodel, the great big divine ball of infinite energy before the Tzimtzum, before the contraction. Then you have the contraction, and what's Nimshech? What comes down is a Kav, the Pnimi, right? Through the Tzimtzum. And then what happens is it doesn't continue in a straight line. So you have the first part of the Kav right on the top, as it were, the highest level of the Kav, as it relates to the first world, or the first realm, or the first sphere after the Tzimtzum. Once it comes to the end of that sphere, so to speak, Choser v'nis agel. Again, there comes an eagle. As it relates, the eagle, the makiv, the imminent element for the next sphere. And again, a portion of the kav, as it were, is drawn down for the pnimi aspect of that sphere, the imminent aspect of that sphere. And then again, when it comes to the end of that sphere, again, there's an eagle, Choser v'nis agel. Again, there's that. Right? So it's a sphere within a sphere within a sphere within a sphere, and each sphere has an eagle and a yesher. Igulim v'yesher, igulim v'yesher, and this is the repeated process in the entire Seder Ishtalshalos. That's the idea of igulim v'yesher in a nutshell. Now, each one of the yesher elements of each sphere have a relationship to one another because they are what? Part of the same yesher, they're part of the same kav. Irrespective of the fact that Elam Asiya, the very lowest sphere, is so vastly distant from Atzilus, the very highest sphere, right? And in the lowest sphere you have Nivroim, created physical beings. Atzilus you have Ne'etzolim, emanated existence. You don't have created existence, which is Bein Arech. There's no relationship between the two. Yet, because it's part of Seder Ishtalshalos, right? They do have a relationship in the sense that they're part of the same, as it were, operating system. And that is also true for the igulim aspects of each sphere. So the igul, or the makif, the immanent element of Elam Asiya, as distant as it is from the igul element of Atzilus, still has some relationship to it because of the fact, well, I don't know if the word is closeness, but they're part of the same operating system. They live generally in the same. They're part of the same. Yeah, they're part of the same structure, as it were, in the sense that although over here you have emanated beings and over here you have created beings, they are similar in the sense that both of them are not godly aspects. They're not aspects that relate. They are godly aspects, but that still certainly is godly aspect. But they're not of the creator. They're more of the created. Whereas you talk about the eagle, Shehikdimu Tzimtzum, God's infinite light before the contraction, or if you're talking about the very, very highest levels of Ein Sof, meaning the first point where Hashem emanates from His very essence, a point of light, as it were, from which everything follows, right? That aspect of Ein Sof is totally beyond Seder Ishtalshalos in every sense of the word, because, to use the terminology of Kabbalah and Chassidus, Loid Noga by HaTzimtzum. The Tzimtzum didn't even touch there at all. Okay? So the Rebbe is going to basically explain, you can see the construct already, and the Rebbe will explain that that when you talk about the two crowns, ksorim, makif, eagle, right? That's the eagle aspect of Seder Shtalshalos. Those relate to the ones that he gave to the Eden. He gave to the people. Because that is an eagle which becomes that's a keser, that's a makif, that's an immanent, that's a transcendental godly light, which is in the realm of, it becomes now in the realm of the created. Whereas the third crown is a reference to the eagle before the tzimtzum, the transcendent God's infinite light, which is the very, very highest point of God's infinite light, which he keeps for himself. And which we also tap into through Avodah, through Kabbalah Soil, through Bittul.
Through Kabbalah Soul.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we it's not only we could tap into it, we must tap into it. We have to still not only have the energy from the igulim as they relate from the transcendental elements of godliness which relate to us, but we also need to tap in to the transcendental infinite light of Hashem, which essentially doesn't relate to us, but which can only reach through Avodah. That's in a nutshell what Rebbe is saying. So now let's say another couple of lines.
Just hang on 1 second. And Or and Kalim,
Yeah.
in as much as their relationship to that overall structure, they're just within, both of them are
Within Seder Shtalshalos, yeah.
The Or part is part of
The Yosher.
Shtalshalos, yes, Yosher. So
Kalim also is part of Shtalshalos.
yeah, so there's a soiv around every Or and Kalim.
That's true, but I'm saying that's a lot more. Yes, yeah, if you want to talk about getting into more detail, yes. There's igulim v'yosher in every element of the Shtalshalos.
The Kalim is interrelated to the Reshibu, which is part of the original.
Yes, but that's all still.
Just another angle.
But this is all still within the igulim v'yosher of quote Hishtalshalos. Then you have a makif oir, which is totally beyond Hishtalshalos. Loi noga by a tzimtzum. Generally, it says that the tzimtzum only is only as it were relative to those that are below, from those that, relative to that which is above the tzimtzum, right? The tzimtzum didn't really have an effect, but we learned in the Mamar Barichas, and I forget which Mamar it was in the previous Mamar, that I think it was in Lisima Shakela even, if I'm not mistaken. One of the Mamorim, that even in the Erein Sof, in other words, the tzimtzum, what did the tzimtzum accomplish? The tzimtzum accomplished a separation of the Erein Bligvul and the Erein Gvul. It made the Eira Gvul, the Koyach Gvul rather, it made the limited power of Hashem obvious and as a standalone. So that becomes now the system for Seder Shtalshalos, right? So all it did was it sort of extracted the Koyach Gvul, the power to limit, from it all being in one undiscernible structure. In one indiscernible manner, right? So really, concerning the Erein Sof Shalif Natzim, if you remember in Lisima Shakela, that what happens when he doesn't do what he should do in Avodas Hashem? Where is the pgam? Where's the blemish? What does it affect?
Or the Kalim.
Correct.
Yeah.
So he says it touches even the Eir Habligvul, in the sense that it can't reveal itself. If you remember, right?
The Kalim by definition also affected, you see.
Yes, the Kalim are affected, but the Eir.
Yeah.
You would think the Eir is not affected. He says no. Now the Eir can't function. Can't do it.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Right. So when you talk about loy noga by a tzimtzum, that the tzimtzum doesn't touch on the Eir, in a certain sense it does because it extracts the koyach hagvul from that element of Eir. Right. But then you have an aspect in Eir and Sof where not even that happens because it's so beyond everything, and it's that keser that he keeps for himself and which we tap in through Avodah. That's the point he makes there.
Right.
Do we have another minute? But I'm just going to say one line. What's this idea of the third crown? The main existence of the world is through the makifim aspects, specifically. And again, what does he mean, the makifim aspects? The transcendental aspects of godliness? This is the idea of the Igulim. So you have the Yesha Seder Shtalshalos, but Seder Shtalshalos would not be able to operate and would not be able to do what it does if not for the makif, the transcendental divine energy that, as it were, guards it and keeps it, and it's like that protective shield, as it were, or the real energy that gives the energy to what? To the Yesha to be able to give its to be able to function properly in its specific realm. Sunday.